WNJC Radio 1360 AM or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our websites, ConservativeCommandosRadioNetwork.com and CCRN.com for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
This holiday season, help Soldiers for Stockings improve the morale and welfare of members of our armed forces deployed overseas. Now through November 20th, there is so much work to be done, and you can help in many ways. Download the stocking pattern from stockingsforsoldiers.org and start sewing today. Volunteer to help decorate and assemble stockings. Donate Christmas candies, snacks, nuts, chips, drink mixes, DVDs, books, magazines, lip balm, toiletries, and other items needed to fill the stockings. Or help make packets of snowman soup, hot chocolate, to send along with the stockings. For more information, patterns, and a list of items needed, visit stockingsforsoldiers.org. This holiday season, help send our troops a touch of home. For many, it's all they will receive. All stockings need to be completed by November 20th. So get started today at stockingsforsoldiers.org. That's stockingsforsoldiers.org. Stockings for Soldiers, sending stockings filled with joy to our soldiers in harm's way for the 9th consecutive year.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios, WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Hey, thanks for staying with us. If you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our websites, ccrsnetwork.com and ccrshow.com, or mornings at 9 a.m., log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com, or at 1 p.m., log on to roarradio.net, and at 6 p.m., log on to thepunditpress.com. Now you can listen to the Conservative Commandos from any phone anywhere on the planet by calling 832-999-1199. 832-999-1199. Rick, I've used it a couple times. It works really well. And it's free on my system.
Kevin, you know, before we went to the break, before we get to our first guest, you were talking about, and I wanted our audience to know you weren't kidding. You were talking about over programs for overweight lesbians. And the way you talked about that, some of our listeners might have thought that you were being funny.
I was trying to be hypothetical, fantasy arguments.
But there was actually a government program to study why lesbian women were overweight. So,
and another program why they drink too much.
Yeah.
But some people are overweight and some people drink too much. But, maybe lifestyle choices actually do affect your overall happiness. But you and I know that. We don't need to spend $8 million of the poor, suffering taxpayers' money, do we?
It's a whole lot more than $8 million.
Just throwing that out as a nickel, okay? Just pitching the nickel.
Sorry.
As our guest up, Andrew Harrod is a freelance researcher and writer who holds a Ph.D. from the Fletcher School of Law and Diplomacy and a J.D. from George Washington University Law School. He's admitted to the Virginia State Bar. He's published over 250 articles concerning political and religious topics at the American Thinker, Daily Caller, Front Page, Faith Freedom International, Religious Freedom Coalition, Washington Times, and World, among others. He is a fellow with the Lawfare Project, an organization combating the misuse of human rights law against Western societies. And what a way to kick off the week. Seems like a great guest. And stay with us. You're going to find out. Well, let me welcome to the show Andrew Harrod. Andrew?
Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me again.
Oh, thank you so much. There was an article, and I'm trying to, and you wrote it. The Jewish state is apparently a greater threat to America than anything emanating from the Muslim world. Walk us through this, if you would.
Well, that was sort of the overall thesis of a panel recently held at the SEW, the Service Employees International Union headquarters here in Washington, D.C., near DuPont Circle, a key Democratic Party contributor, I might add. And the panel was headed by Rashid Khalidi, a Columbia University professor of Middle East Studies and also a former PLO spokesman who now also heads a group called the Institute for Palestine Studies. And they discussed the future bipartisanship of Israel and America concerning the relationship of the two political parties, Democrats and Republicans, to Israel in the future, are advocating the thesis that Israel is going to become more of a conservative partisan issue and more progressive left-wing people are going to turn away from Israel. And then the panel, they made arguments from the panelists like Paul Pillar, a former CIA analyst and now Georgetown University professor, that Iran apparently wasn't such a big threat, or you think of very sort of jihadist, Islamist threats, but they really focused on what they saw as all of these negatives emanating from America's relationship with its longstanding ally in the region, Israel.
Andrew, just state the obvious. Why do these people attack the U.S.'s relationship with Israel? Why is it so important for them to single out this relationship and not talk about our relationship with Finland or Portugal or Argentina?
Well, they pull up a lot of arguments you've probably heard before, and Paul Pillar, for example, made arguments of this is a burden on the United States, that, we have to give out all this diplomatic capital to stick up for Israel, and also that the issue exasperates terrorism around the world, that, Muslims around the world, they'll point to Israel and they'll look at the U.S. relationship with Israel and say, hey, you're supporting Israel, and we're really angry about that, and we want to attack you. I mean, this really sort of downplays or ignores all sorts of other issues that inflame the Muslim world. I mean, think of Osama bin Laden attacking the United States on 9/11, for example, that his primary cause that he cited before looking at Israel was the American deployment of military personnel to Saudi Arabia, beginning with the first Gulf War and then continuing thereafter to deter Saddam Hussein's forces, that this incensed him that these non-Muslims were here in the Arabian Peninsula, in this sacred area for Muslims with the holy sites of Mecca and Medina. You think of the fighting in Syria with the Islamic State and Shiites and Sunnis fighting each other. That has nothing to do with Israel, or issues of, cartoons in Europe, of the Danish cartoons, or Charlie Hebdo, issues of conflicts with Muslims there, or the Arab Spring. I mean, that really has nothing to do with Israel. But bringing up these, and they, of course, also they make arguments about Israel's racist, apartheid state. This is really a sort of a evil, bad regime with which the United States is affiliating itself and selling out its principles. So those are sort of all the arguments that were strewn throughout this panel involving Paul Pillar, Rashid Khalidi, and I might add as well Nihad Awad, the director of the Hamas-derived and unindicted co-conspirator Council on American Islamic Relations.
Now, let me ask this. How did the fact that this one figure was a former spokesman for the PLO, how does this escape observation and criticism? The man used to be, I mean, is that solid, that he used to be a spokesman for the Palestine Liberation Organization?
Well, he made certain sort of denials, but he was, you might compare, some people recently, I was on another show, and their comparisons brought up, comparing, say, to Reza Aslan, who's sort of he's with NIAC, the National Iranian American Council, which has been exposed as sort of a de facto lobby for Iran in the United States. I mean, he was someone that would broadcast talking points of the PLO and stick up for their cause. That at this particular audience, with their alignments and the panel, all of these being sort of very anti-Israel people, something like that, being a spokesperson for the PLO would not really stick out.
So his best deflection of the criticism being a spokesman is that he's only an apologist.
Well, he throughout, I mean, his arguments today and in the past, I mean, he would describe himself as a Palestinian nationalist and would make all sorts of apologetic arguments, I guess, for the PLO of, they're fighting for a cause against oppression and, perhaps terrorism. That's unfortunate, but, you have to understand that they're desperate people, and that would be the line he would take. I mean, he's always focused on condemning Israel as something that's illegitimate and oppresses Palestinians, takes away their self-determination. and therefore needs to somehow be combated. And he would, make arguments of terrorism as just kind of sort of the natural result of oppressing people that they're going to seek desperate means.
Now, if we asked him what other examples in the Middle East could he show of local Muslims exercising their right of self-determination, I would like to hear that, because I believe the only country where Arabs actually have a vote is, in fact, in the nation of Israel.
Well, that was, of course, an issue that came up at the panel. Pilar made this argument that, terrorism is something that's only done by Palestinians and others throughout history when they have no peaceful, effective channels for pursuing their interests, was the quotation you used, and that if only they would have them, they would tend to use them. But as you're indicating, throughout the Middle East, throughout all of these Muslim-majority Arab states, and then for that matter, Iran or Turkey, there's precious little freedom, precious little democracy. The only one example of, that somewhat rocky road to democracy is Turkey, that even there they've had problems. But certainly, of course, Iran is a theocracy, and all the other states, the Arab, Muslim-majority Arab states in the Arab League are all, dictatorships or have had, even Tunisia has only recently emerged in the Arab Spring, has been the only somewhat shaky success story of instituting a constitution and having elections. But so you wonder why Pilar thinks that democracy is just going to flower among the Palestinians in any sort of future state in the Gaza Strip or any territories in the West Bank, Judea, Samaria, or why he feels so confident that that's going to simply burst forth, or if you think of our attempts to instill a free society democracy in Iraq, or for that matter, Afghanistan.
We're on the phone with Andrew Harrod. He's a freelance researcher and writer, and he's talking to us about, pro-PLO bashing of Israel, hosted by the Service Employees International Union, Service Employees International Union, in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. We're going to go for a break. Andrew, would you stay with us and so we can continue this conversation on the other side? If you would, we're coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network Studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the Internet with CPR Worldwide Media, Leading Edge Radio Network, TalkStream Live, The Pundit Press, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Roar Radio, AM/FM 24/7. Stay with us. We're going to be back in just about 4 minutes and 3 seconds.
They say I'm crazy. I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but I...
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the Internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, ccrsnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, this is Bob Vide, owner of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glassboro, New Jersey. I've had the opportunity to travel in many foreign countries, and I've seen what happens to people when they lose their freedom. I wrote this poem. Give us freedom was the cry as they marched throughout the night. At Concord Bridge in Trenton, for freedom they would fight. To build a nation that would last with peace and liberty, it is a job that's never done if we are to be free. They wrote a declaration to announce that we are free, then a constitution for all the world to see. But this is ink on paper. We must make it last. It must always be defended, and that is quite a task. Today the battle rages for freedom in our land. To save our Constitution, we all must take a stand. We must stand up for freedom in our actions every day, and you can stand up with us. Join the NRA. This is Bob Biden of Bob's Little Sports Shop in Glasper, New Jersey. You may call us at area code 856-881-7575 or visit us online at bobslittle.sportshop.com.
This holiday season,